Well, now the situation has arisen where the clergy themselves came to the conclusion that they had to give serious consideration to what was happening. Was Bernadette telling the truth? Were the apparitions authentic? Were the miracles authentic? So what happened was that the Bishop of Tarbes, Monsignor Lawrence, decided to set up a commission of inquiry. This would consist of a panel of priests, theologians, and the Bishop of Tarbes himself. For Bernadette, this commission of inquiry was dreadful because it meant that she had to sit in front of these important and gruesome-looking men trying to answer their difficult questions. However, she coped admirably because the story she told was so consistent, but she hated it because so frequently did she have to repeat the story. Worse still for Bernadette, journalists were frequenting Lourdes, and Bernadette was constantly being interviewed by journalists from Paris and other big cities in France. Also, she had to have her photograph taken regularly. Of course, in those days, photography had just started, and so Bernadette was the subject of the photography, the flash photography of those days. She hated that too. And when her photograph was being sold around Lourdes for a sou a time, all Bernadette would say, "Well, that's all I'm worth." As I say, the whole situation exasperated her. She used to say, "They're treating me on show, like cattle in a market." During the commission, the pressure on Bernadette just got worse and worse. Everybody who visited Lourdes wanted to see her, to touch her, to talk to her, and it became unbearable and unacceptable. So the authorities, together with her parents and with Bernadette's agreement, decided that she should go to a local hospice, one in Lourdes, where Bernadette would be a boarder. But tough little Bernadette said, "Well, I'm not going to board and be away from my family all of the time. I must have the right to visit my family periodically." So that right was established, and from the hospice she enjoyed going back to her family in nearby Lourdes. However, remember that Bernadette was still suffering a lot from asthma, and this hospice was a place for looking after sick people. So you could say that Bernadette was a sick person in the hospice looking after sick people. Of course, Bernadette was still a schoolgirl. She had to learn French. She had to improve her reading and writing. She had to do arithmetic and all the other things that schoolgirls did. But she was very happy in this place. She was, in fact, nothing more than a typical schoolgirl. She loved romping, she loved games. She was not averse to a little mischief. She was not averse to a little vanity, trying on the crinolines, which were the fashions of the time. And so, for Bernadette, she declared that this was a place, although she was away from home as a boarder, she was very happy there. "4 years after the apparitions, we're now in 1862, the Commission of Inquiry, set up by the Bishop of Tarbes, came out with its long-awaited proclamation. I think it would be nice if I actually read what that proclamation, that announcement said in connection with Bernadette's apparitions in the grotto. It said, "Here is a decree passing judgment on the apparitions that took place at the grotto at Lourdes. We judge that Mary, the Immaculate Mother of God, did really appear to Bernadette Soubirous on the 11th of February, 1858, and on certain subsequent days, to the number of 18 times in all, in the grotto of Massabielle, near the town of Lourdes, that these apparitions bear every mark of truth, and that the faithful are justified in believing them as certain. The veneration of Our Lady of the Grotto of Lourdes was therefore authorized, and the way was now clear for the building of the chapel and the coming of processions." A fantastic statement, a fantastic moment for Lourdes, fantastic moment for Bernadette, who after all, by that announcement, was vindicated. She had told the truth. What she was saying she had seen and heard was true. So what was the consequence of that announcement? The first consequence was that a statue had to be created and put in the niche, that little cleft in the grotto of Massabielle, to represent the lady that Bernadette had seen. Who to make that statue? Fabiche, Monsieur Fabiche, the greatest sculptor in France, was chosen. And he set to work. He consulted Bernadette frequently to describe the dress, exactly what the lady looked like. And at last, finally, the statue was produced. And everybody gathered round, all the officials, said, "You are amazing, Monsieur Fabiche. It's absolutely perfect." So he turned to Bernadette and said to her, "And Bernadette, what do you think of it?" And Bernadette replied quite simply, she was not like that. And Fabiche was later to say it was the greatest sorrow of his life what Bernadette had said to him at that moment. What else happened after the proclamation? Well, of course, the chapel had to begin that the lady had asked for, and the processions, which in effect had been coming already, began more seriously. We would now call them pilgrimages. Pilgrimages were coming to Lourdes, and that this was really the beginning of Lourdes as a place of pilgrimage that we now know.